everybody. Thank you for joining our YouTube channel. I'm Brian. This is my co-host here, Matthew Creedican. Matthew Creedican is a former Navy SEAL and somebody who has done volunteer work in Ukraine, so he's our expert on the show. Also, we're part of a group called Technology United for Ukraine. So if you'd like to volunteer for our organization, we work with the Ukrainian government on the civilian side, military side, helping with creating innovative technologies. So if you're an engineer, scientist, or just somebody who wants to volunteer, click the link in the description and you can join our organization. All right, without any further ado, I want to get into some of the questions I have for Matthew. And by the way, he will be on all of our videos going forward. All right, Matthew. So as we know, right now, there seems to be a lot of shelling, a lot of attacks going on in the Sumy area, Chernihiv. What do you think the Russians were thinking? And do you think it's now a failure, that it was not a good tactical or strategic initiative that they did?
Yeah, I mean, it's the reason why they did the attacks. I think broadly speaking, they're trying to just put a large amount of pressure across the entire front, and this is one of the ways they can do it. So, they likely probably want to pull more resources that direction, and then also just pressure the local border towns. So, if you have any kind of construction, building, military materials in those areas, it's very likely you're going to push those kind of businesses out, because you're taking quite a risk to build a factory, put something together, if somebody's chucking bombs into it. And even if you're willing to take the risk, the guy that's willing to put the money up to fund your operation might not be willing to take that risk. So, you throw a few bombs in, guided missiles, Shaheeds, whatever it is, whether it's materially effective or not, it's psychologically effective against, like, the, say, investor class, I suppose.
So you think it was a big psychological
Well, to a degree,
initiative?
I think that's just like that. Like, that's just a side piece of it, right? You have to look into the politics on the Russian side. They have to be seen to be doing something. Like, nobody's going to want to be sitting around uh, in that. Like, if you look, and like, this goes both sides of it. It goes with most militaries, unless you're extremely advanced, and you can measure your military based on its overall military outcomes. I say overall military outcomes because I maybe you're in charge of a blocking force where you're not really supposed to be doing a whole lot. So I don't, as like as a larger overall strategic view, I don't really expect you to do a bunch. Doesn't mean I think you're a bad commander just because you don't have a bunch of numbers for blowing up enemy units or losing guys. But in a lot of these cases, the ability to measure the quality of a commander is poor, and the way they measure it is if they've planned an operation, whoever has more casualties or has more things happen, blew up more stuff. Uh, and it goes both ways, whether you're blowing up the enemy stuff or getting some of your guys killed. Like, those are all metrics that the army commanders look at, because those are the only kind of things they know for sure. Like, if you took X amount of casualties, then I know at least you're engaging the enemy.
Right. So it's a way that they're kind of measuring the progress of a commander. They're putting the pressure on them, saying, look, we need to see activity. We need to see, you're making contact with the enemy. And from there, that's how their matrix works on the Russian side. Obviously, there is a lot of flaws to that, as you're seeing a lot of these meat waves and things like that. It's because they have to show some progress. And just so everybody knows, this is Chernihiv, if I said it right, and this is Sumy. These are the two areas we're talking about here that we're getting pressured. And then the other thing I wanted to get to was Kharkiv, which is right here. So if we look down here, this is where Kharkiv is. If we look at the map itself, I'll blow this up a little bit more. There we go. Well, that didn't work out well. I didn't realize the. But anyways, go to my other map here. So let's get rid of. So and this is where the Kharkiv offense right here, what the Russians are putting in here. Oh, this thing's being weird. All right. What is your feeling about the offensive here? Was it do you think it's a complete strategic disaster for
No,
the
no,
Russians?
it's like obviously they would have liked to surround it more, but I think it did. It was not knowing the exact amount of losses each side took. That's hard to say, but it's probably overall beneficial for the Russians to have done it because this more than anything, as I was saying before, that's the second largest city in Ukraine. So for them to be able to pressure that and put that kind of pressure on basically means significant amounts of activity in that city as far as making war material has likely been reduced to significant degrees. The guys probably pulling out of that region, going different places, uh, or definitely not ramping up production. Uh, and so
Do you
it's
think this was a hit against their industry too in that area? Just both
yeah,
on
yeah. I mean that's the benefit. Like I mean, that's just of multiple benefits. If you look from the Russian perspective, that's multiple benefits. Now, um, probably one of the benefits to the Ukrainians is to put pressure on that region and put pressure on the Ukrainians' narrative that they're. I don't know if it's you can call it the Ukrainian narrative, but let's just say the Ukrainians want to always in their media narrative look like they're winning all the time,
right?
and they believe that to some degree too much. Let's say, um, so that's kind of a wake up. I think the last couple months has been a wake up call because there is some. I don't know if you saw there was reports about defensive lines that were supposed to have been built and in some of the cases those weren't built
What
because of
happened there? I did see that. What is your perspective on that? What happened?
uh I think you get it's partially it's corruption and partially it's also driven by, oh well, we're doing so well, why do we need to actually do this, so we'll go do. I think whoever's in charge of those like that piece, they're they're in yeah, I think the easiest explanation is just corruption. um,
Yeah, sad
and
fact. Sad fact.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and certain like, and I think some of that corruption is driven, not the corruption's not driven, it's just justified by, well, we're doing, if you look at, say 6 months ago, yeah,
And
like
so let me ask you here. Do you think do you think this was a tremendously um, flawed strategy for the Russians to hit Kharkiv? Do you think it was an absolute disaster, or like you're saying, there might have been some benefits for the Russians to do this?
oh no, it wasn't a disaster. I mean, the likely, if you look at the long-term strategy of the Russians and seemingly in their long-term strategy, look, they do some stupid things, but there's reasons you can explain why they do the stupid things. Some of it's just stupidity, and some of it's just bad ability to manage the troops. They need a way to move their guys forward. In this case, let's look at part of the strategy the Russians did that was effective right before the invasion, the main full-scale invasion. They bought a whole load of oil futures. So they
Mm,
knew they were planning ahead that they were going to get sanctioned. When that oil got restricted and they got sanctioned, they made a ridiculous amount of money. So they do have the ability to see ahead and they do have the ability to do long-term planning. As much corruption, like yeah, the Russians are full of corruption. You could say that's why they're extremely large military that outmatched Ukraine. Part of the reason they were stopped is that they just couldn't bring their forces to bear effectively.
All right. So
So
go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, so the final thing, I just wanted to kind of get your perspective on, that they arrested the general who I believe was in charge of the Kharkiv offensive, the Russian general.
Mm.
So do you think they're just trying to push blame on somebody? Because this is what they're saying, that Putin wants to push blame on somebody for this failed offensive, and it was over corruption. So what
Yeah.
are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, one, I don't know enough about the internal politics of the individual internal politics of that guy and what Putin might be trying to do. Like one of the insights you can take away is that the Eastern or say Russian mentality around maybe we'd say Soviet mentality around uh, Soviet culture. Well, I don't know the exact best term to put on it, but somebody it doesn't matter why something went wrong, somebody has to take a blame for it. You could have had a flood, but somebody has to take a blame because there was a flood. Uh, so it doesn't matter, if there isn't success, then if there's less than success, somebody always gets blamed. That's just the mentality. So there's always who can point fingers most effectively in those kind of situations. And whether that
It's a
guy
very Soviet mentality. Yeah.
Right. And whether that guy in particular, they had a reason they want to try to get rid of him for some other reason, and that was just a convenient way to get rid of him, or whether he was, not tamping down corruption well enough. Uh, I don't know. I don't know enough on the inside on the Russian side to speak well on
All right. So, in conclusion, now, is there anything else you want to add to that?
that. Yeah, I mean, look, there's plenty of detail we could go into later. We could use up quite a bit of time. Uh, as to why that offensive failed, um,
A deeper
and why it
dive
was.
into it. Maybe we can make a video
Yeah,
just on a deeper dive of strategically why it didn't go, I think, as well planned as the Russians would have liked.
right.
All right. Well, Matthew, we're going to be doing a lot more of these. So, everybody out there, appreciate you coming, checking out the video. Like I said, Matthew's a former Navy SEAL, so we're going to get some really good insight, both tactically and strategically, with somebody with a lot of experience in this world. Because you also in Afghanistan and Iraq with the U.S. military at a point in your career, so you've got a lot of combat experience and knowledge. So again, if you want to join Technology United for Ukraine, you want to volunteer, link is in the description. And look forward to seeing you guys again. And we'll be putting videos out on a daily basis. And again, thank you everyone, and Slava Ukraini.